Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy here, for nerds, by nerds, hanging out with some nerds today, and special guest Scott Garibay.
Hey, hey. I'm Ted.
And today, Scott came to us with a great idea for a video, very interesting, and I'm really digging on it. Before we get into that, go down in the description below. You can find Nerdarchy's newsletter, where you'll get tips and tricks right to your inbox every week, and you even learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
So, you want to introduce your idea, Scott?
Absolutely. So go ahead and hold those up if you guys would. So I am blessed to own every edition, the core rule books in every edition of Dungeons and Dragons. It took a while to collect them. I got lucky. I didn't have to spend a lot of money. I was able to just find them where I could. It actually took about 3 or 4 years to complete the whole thing.
What happened to your original books?
Oh, it's a great question. So actually, I never owned these. I actually played out of the boxes, the blue and the red boxes.
Oh, yeah. Expert and basic. And
yeah, so when I was young, I really never owned these. And so basically the idea that I wanted to do was I wanted to talk about the covers, the cover art, and what we think of the cover art, and also when we look at that cover, maybe what are some memories that are connected to seeing that book for the first time, and what you thought of the covers, and what they evoke in you.
All right, so these are your advanced D&D, your first edition, if you will,
exactly.
Books. And truth be told, I never played this edition. I didn't start until advanced second. That's where I came in. I think I was 13, 14 years old. I was exposed to D&D through my Boy Scout troop, and a bunch of us played.
Now, a lot of people think that these came after the box sets, but that's not actually the truth.
No,
the box sets were introduced later as an easier way to learn the game,
right?
Mm-hmm. And then you could go through it. Which I played in both. I was lucky enough. I was first exposed to the red box with that iconic image on it that is still. It's still recognizable as D&D when you see that red dragon and the warrior.
Absolutely,
yeah, absolutely.
That's the staple thing that's gone throughout many of the books is that red dragon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now I don't know that I've ever run first edition. I know I've played in it. It was my first edition of D&D. But I can't remember if I actually ran this game or not, or if I started with second edition. When I see these covers, honestly, what they make me think of is my first Dungeon Master, Steve Golly, and it's a bittersweet memory because he was like the greatest guy you would want to meet. He's a lot like you, Sky. He was just a really super nice guy. All about community and helping people. And he was older than us. He was definitely a nerd, and his friends were nerds. So he definitely was not one of the cool kids, but he was one of those nerds that was able to kind of like skate by unnoticed.
Yeah.
So, and the reason why I say it's bittersweet because at 19 he died of leukemia.
Wow.
Yes, honestly,
is bittersweet.
And so that he was like 4 or 5 years older than us. So I was like 14, 15 at the time.
Holy cow.
And when I think of it, I still get sad.
Yeah.
Even more so than I've had family members die that I don't get as emotional about.
Well, they say the lights that shine brightest, shine less.
Yeah,
so
shine shorter.
First,
yeah, absolutely. That's fascinating, and I'm really glad you guys agreed to do this segment because I really felt like this would. I didn't even know, but I kind of felt like these would be a key to a lot of memories for all of us, and it is true. So I'm in the same boat as you. I never ran this. I did get to play it at a convention. I got to play first edition Dungeons and Dragons at a convention with a really old, wizened grognard who was, and it was great. It was really nice, because, and it actually inspired me to go and collect the actual books. And one of the things that's great about the actual books is these books, every book I own, for Dungeons and Dragons I have played with, but at one time or another. But one of the things that really is special, except these are kind of like talismans. I've never really played with these. I don't even know if I would, put these down and play through with them, only because they're so special. And when I got them for the first time, it was like me kind of putting the punctuation mark on my hobby that I love so much. And so what was really special for me, this is the player's handbook, right? And what was really special was when I saw this, when I got Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, it actually made me think of what a brilliant, beautiful cover the 1st edition Dungeons & Dragons PHB has. And so one of the things that's great is D&D 5th edition, they said the pillars of the game are exploration, combat, and interaction. And you actually have that on this exact cover. So you have... this guy is cleaning his sword because he was just in combat. These two are actually interacting. They're talking about, hey, we're going to need to solve this puzzle. We need to interact in order to do this together. And exploration, and this is, it's a really special thing. Exploration, they're in a place they've never seen before, and so all three of the through lines that we see beautifully brought in 5th edition are right there on the cover of the 1st edition. So even though the game's gone through 4 iterations of improvement, Gary Gygax knew what it was about from day one, and he really made something special right out of the gate, which I thought was pretty awesome. So.
Well, the thing that I like about the Monster Manual is the game is D&D, and we have a dungeon and a dragon.
Yeah.
So it's put there right on the cover. Now, as technology increases,
that's a great point.
So does artistic ability. So, we look at the owlbear and the troll. Is that a roper?
Yeah, I think it is.
So these things have evolved in artistic, renditions over the years, and sometimes, you see the artwork and it's like, wow, that looks really bad, but you have to think Gary Gygax and the people who created this game, just came up with ideas and described it to somebody. Some of the monsters that are in here are literally based off of things that just somebody randomly came up with. The belay is literally a little creature that came in a random assortment of plastic toys.
Kaiju monsters.
And he's like, oh, here you go. And there was a pack of, prehistoric animals, and the belay was one of these things, and I actually have one of those original plastic figures, and it's like, okay, this was the original iteration of the belay, and it had, as opposed to the shell behind its neck, it was kind of more along its back. It was weird looking. But as the creature became more of a staple in D&D culture, the art grew and it became this terrifying monster. So I love looking back. I'm very fond of D&D. For many years I played it every single week. When I was in college, I would sometimes play in three or 4 games a week. It was just one of those things that I did. So looking back through the history of D&D is always something that's really cool. And the Centaur, the Unicorn, and the Dragon aren't so bad.
See, I think the troll holds up. I like that troll.
It's you could put that troll in a game and people would probably still get it, but it's not as terrifying as the troll nowadays.
If that troll showed up in your basement, Ted, you would pee your pants.
Here, actually, can I switch with you for a minute?
Absolutely.
So the Monster Manual is really special to me, too. One of the things I love about the Monster Manual is this book is filled with art from Tony DiTerlizzi. And so Tony DiTerlizzi is a specific artist who's out there. And one of the things I think is, Dungeons & Dragons is...
He's most well known for Planescape from gaming, or Spiderwick Chronicles.
That's exactly right. So one of the things I think is awesome is how far-reaching Dungeons & Dragons is. A lot of times I think, we think of Dungeons & Dragons as kind of a niche product, but it really does span out, and it touches the lives of really millions of people. And I think, and actually that's exactly where I was going. So, the Spiderwick Chronicles were a fantastic series of really wonderful little books. They're beautiful. Literally millions of kids have read those books.
Absolutely.
And seen art in those books that is light years better because Tony DiTerlizzi cut his teeth right here.
I did not know that, to be honest with you. I didn't know he was in the original Monster
Exactly,
Manual. In the original AD&D art.
And so he's all over there. He's been doing work for for TSR and then Wizards of Coast for a long time, and actually he's kind of grown beyond it, where he has his Realms was just put out, which is a great book that just goes through all the work that he's done across all these role-playing games. So I really think it's really cool. And then the Spiderwick movie even came out.
Yeah.
Spiderwick Chronicles movie came out, and all of that comes from Holly Black's career has been elevated. She wrote the books, and they're a really great series of books, and I think it's really great that Dungeons and Dragons helped to bring literacy and like increased literacy and a desire to read more for literally millions of kids, and I feel like D&D is directly responsible for that. It's just really kind of neat.
It's kind of amazing to think that the guy that did the art in this book is the same guy that did Planescape.
Yeah,
because Planescape is so distinctive and, and just so well done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'm not trying to say that the artwork here is bad. I'm just saying that it's changed over the.
It's
over
a completely
years.
different style,
Right?
Yeah.
And a lot of this art really still does hold up. I mean, like the DMG, this cover is amazing. The demon they have on here, the devil, I think is really well done. I love it. Again, here, we're not getting too much exploration or interaction. It's just save the damsel.
Yeah.
And all that being said, too, there's some things about AD&D and Gary Gygaxisms that have gone away that needed to go away.
Yeah, absolutely.
Reportedly he was a big time chauvinist and things like that. With each edition, we've gotten further and further away from some of those negative aspects. We're finally losing the chainmail bikini.
Yep.
As a male, I love looking at the chainmail bikini, but you're right. It doesn't have a place in the game,
right? And
it doesn't work.
Right. And being able to look at the old covers, you get to see how far the game has gone and how the game itself has really has grown and really matured with us, which is really kind of interesting.
One of the things too about 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons that I was pointing out to these guys is in the back of this book somewheres there's a random dungeon creator, and that's I almost feel like that very same thing is in here it is, the random dungeon generator, and I feel like they kind of just lifted that and put it right into 5th edition.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there's a traps and tricks section in here that it's found its way into the new Dungeons Master's Guide in 5th edition. So like all of that stuff is really cool, and it's a throwback to us grognards that were there in the beginning. I loved using the random generator in this book to create dungeons.
I agree. You were 100% right. So I'm going to make a correction within the video. Dieter Lisi came in 2. So okay. I'm going to take a minute and say it's actually, so this is 1977, 1978. Man, that takes me back. David C. Sutherland, D.A. Trampier, Tom Wham, John Wells, and the cover itself is by David C. Sutherland III. And so you're right. Dieter Lisi came out in the 2nd. So you're correct. If you look at the art in here, this is very old. And and one of the things I think is exciting is there's an entire line of OSR games, old school rules, which are really still creating new content that looks like the art from these books because people love them so much. So that's a good point. And
there's a website online just for that.
So everything that I said about Dieter Lisi applies to the 2nd edition. So thanks for that. Yeah, and it speaks to your credit that you knew. And you're right. The art here is you wanted one generation back, and we look at this and it looks a little bit pedestrian, but then it was pretty cutting edge, and it really affected a lot of stuff.
And that's one of the things that I want to talk about. You said this came out in 77 and 78. Well, that's 38 years ago because I was born in 1978.
Wow.
So
wow.
That shows how far back this goes.
Yeah, I was like 2 or 3.
Yeah. So this book came out. So I was born in 1970, and this book came out the year Star Wars came out, which is pretty amazing. That's pretty awesome, and it's pretty cool.
My favorite part about the cover of the Player's Handbook is this little section right here. Now, if you've ever been tempted to try and pry the gems out of an eye, it happens all the time back in the early days. And it never went well. you either were dealing with a mimic, or you were about to get cursed, attacked by a construct. There were
Struck by lightning.
so many bad things that would happen with this exact scenario.
Except, without fail, every player would go after those gems
Every single time, because it was just so tempting. For the most part, my early DMs that were good weren't until I actually started gaming with Dave and one of his friends, and like they would throw this kind of stuff, and it was just so descriptive and so tempting. It's like, well, clearly this must be part of our reward. I've got to go up and get it, and sure
it's
enough,
sparkling.
Exactly.
sure enough, you get stuck, or you get struck, or you get cursed, or the thing starts moving. It's like, no.
Well, it's funny. Like, you can't look at these and not remember like a million things that have happened. The big one for me is this unicorn. So like every single creature on here I've used in an adventure, but I remember specifically one of the encounters I did was a unicorn, and I had a group of players, and we had one guy who I was trying to bring over from the video game world. He had never played a D&D game. He came over from the video game world, and I put this, and basically the encounter was, you guys are walking in the forest, and you come over a small mound, and there is a unicorn below, and it is drinking from a silver pool, and and for a moment all of you are just caught by the beauty of the moment, and what do you do? And all the characters, every player went down the row, and they say, I'm just going to take this moment, capture it in my mind and remember it. And the video game player said, I take out my bow and I shoot that thing because I heard that their magical horns can be used as spell components. And I'm gonna sell it. And it was just so fun. And so, and like every, like you could just turn this thing on the back and on the front, and like virtually every inch will trigger a different memory for you, which is really wonderful.
When you first talked about it, I couldn't help but think of my very first character, Derek Woodstalker, the elven fighter druid.
Yeah.
When he could, and back then, the restrictions on the weapons and multi-classing thing worked quite the same way. I couldn't wear metal armor, but I could still use a longsword.
Yeah.
So it was good times.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting. Yep.
So I think that about wraps it up.
Absolutely.
Any last pointers?
Not really. Like, I just want to hear what people have to say about their early moments with first edition AD&D, what they have to say about it.
So have any of you guys out there been gaming for a while? Like to share any cool stories? What do these covers bring to you?
Oh, there's two things. One, GM Juice from Gaming with Juice, Tabletop Gaming with Juice. They were actually playing AD&D up until like 5th edition came out.
Wow.
Like they when they played something else, it was Palladium, or they played AD&D.
Wow. And
two, Andrew Armstrong, DFC, Dawnforge Cast, has been doing a series where he's like going over like the wisdom of Gary Gygax and actually opening up the first edition books and going back to and quoting things from them, which is an interesting concept. So if you're into this video, you'd probably be into that as well.
One more thing I would just throw out there is I would really encourage, if you're a Dungeons & Dragons fan out there, I would encourage you trying to get these books on your own, and not just ordering them from the internet. And one of the reasons why is I did not. So one, I don't really order a lot from the internet. I try to buy things that I can see. I like hold it in my hand before I purchase it. And so I did that with every single one of these books. And I bought all my books at friendly local game shops. But the first editions and the second editions, I literally had to explore the world. I had to interact with people. There's no combat involved. There's a couple people I dealt with that I might want to punch in the throat, but but actually, one thing. So I would really encourage people, because it's exciting to try to go and find them, and even the people that you need to deal with to get them are really interesting and fun folks. This book was $25, and and this was about 2 or 3 years ago. But they're out there. They're still floating around. Some of them are in rough shape, but they're definitely worth having.
I don't even remember which book my wife had brought me. It's either the DMZ or the Master Manual, but she found it at a yard sale. Probably paid like $1 for it or something.
Yeah,
something
exactly.
Ridiculous.
They're still out there. And one of the things that's nice is, these books, the 5th edition are in heavy rotation, but the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th editions, they sit on my shelf, and they're like a clock. Every now and then, my eyes sweep across them, and it's just a source of joy. So it's pretty nice. Yeah, it's good to do.
Very cool. Yeah. So, guys, in the comments below, let us know your first edition stories. Tell us about your first characters, and while you're at it, like, subscribe, and share.
You can head over to nerdarchy.com and check out our store.
So until next time,
Stay nerdy.
Nerdy.